Hello, denizens of the interweb. Welcome back to Bland Gaming, the most technically inept YouTube channel on the interweb. I'm your host, Deeb, coming to you from a rainy afternoon here off the West Coast. Wintertime here. First thing I got to do is apologize to all of you. I know that my videos have been very sparse, long time coming, but as you know at Bland Gaming, it's all about the reality. And the reality of it is that I'm not retired yet. Work has been busy. The missus has been traveling, and I've been doing the Mr. Mom thing for quite a while. And I've been distracted by video games. Oh, and as much as I loathe video games and lecture my 17-year-old about how bad they are for him, I myself got pulled into a trap of an online game with two of my very distracting friends. But listen, let's talk about my Kickstarter addiction. So recently, I have received my One Ring Kickstarter, which I backed a while ago. As many of you know, I'm a huge fan of Free League, so anything that Free League does as far as their role-playing settings, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. The Tolkien property also was absolutely it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to back this. So without any further ado, let's talk about the role-playing game, One Ring, role-playing in the world of The Lord of the Rings, based on The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I thought we should probably talk about this too, because there's a Amazon series that's going to be starting here pretty soon. So with the actual game, I mean, this is going to be what you're going to be able to buy from the store. So this is going to be the big, thick tome that you can see. It's got a bookmark in it, which is really nice. The front illustration of, obviously, the cover is done by... My son was playing Root. The cover is done by Martin Grip. So it's got some great art in it, and the interior art is really good too, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Also in the Kickstarter, you get your set of dice here, which has fate dice, and then like statistical dice is what they call. So when you're doing, well, I'll talk. Hey, look at my fingers. When you finger right over it's a new cell phone too, sorry. One day I may get a camera, but then it won't be Bland Gaming. It'll be not so Bland Gaming. So I'm really just recording my videos on my cell phone. So each one of these dice sets and stuff, you'll get two of these, what are called fate dice, and then these are like your little attribute dice that you use to add to it. The attributes is basics 1 through 6, and then the fate dice are obviously 12-sided, and we'll talk about what those do and how those work. Then also as part of the Kickstarter, obviously got this beautiful... I got this beautiful screen here, which is depicting what looks like Gandalf without his pointy hat. Maybe it's not Gandalf. And we've definitely got some orcs here. You can see we've got a hobbit there with some beautiful artwork, as usual, by Martin Grip, because he's awesome. We've got some tables that I will talk to you about and tell you what those do. So with my videos, and this one's no different, I'm not going to go too deep. I'm not going to teach you how to play the game. I'll talk about the system in general and talk about things I liked about the system and things that I'm not so big fan. Opportunities for growth, I guess, is what my wife says. And then it also comes with the boxed starter set here. And I'll show you what's in that. I believe all three of these items are, when it comes to retail, are going to be sold separately. But this is primarily... The book here is primarily what I'm going to focus on, because this is what most of us who play the game, most of us who are what they call the Loremaster, the GM in this game, are going to focus on. This product here is going to get you the really advanced rules. So a quick overview. You need this to play the game. This has all of the rules in it. It has everything about how to play. The boxed starter set, like most of the ones in Free League, it has everything that you can play, but it keeps out some of the less advanced rules. It's kind of like you're just getting into GMing. There's some pre-made characters in here. There's a condensed rules. And then also, I don't know if it's just part of the Kickstarter. I think it actually came with the... Yeah, it did. came with the screen. There's a book on Rivendell that I stuck in the box here, but I'll talk about that here in a second too. So the starter set also has a big, beautiful map in it, and again, it's got a little adventure that you actually can, a starting adventure that you can use. Okay, so the One Ring, this book covers adventuring in the Tolkien-esque, oh my gosh. Okay, so look, I read the books when I was in high school, which, as many of you know, was a long time ago for me. And then I also obviously saw the movies, and I've played a number of the games, and I love a lot of the board games and stuff like that. But I'm not a Tolkien scholar, so I am going to pronounce some of these names wrong. Okay, so forgive me if I get them all wrong, but the area Eriador, I think is how you say it. So this entire role-playing game covers adventuring and role-playing within the setting of Eriador, okay? And just from, again, I'm not a Tolkien scholar, but from what I read from the role-playing game here, that's the area of Bree and the Shire. It's kind of the area around where most the men and the hobbits kind of start out and everything. So in the game, the adventurers, the players, will start out in the area around Bree and the Shire, and then they'll kind of go out and explore an adventure in these areas. It very much reminds me of almost the hex system that Free League also uses with the Forbidden Lands, and also with Mutant Year Zero, and just recently with Twilight 2000. So it's kind of like that same. So the whole setting of the game is your characters are going to get themselves a sponsor. They are going to go out and travel, kind of like very much like in The Hobbit, the there and back again kind of feel, and they're going to explore the lands of Eriador and everything. So let's kind of flip through the book and let's take a look here. As you can see, like most Free League, this is just a absolutely gorgeous book. The style is very Tolkien-esque. In between each chapter, we get Martin Grip's gorgeous artwork, which is just somebody once said in they commented on one of my videos that he's the Keith Parkinson of our age, and Keith Parkinson was a amazing old school D&D guy. So anyway, so let's talk about what kind of characters you have, and we're adventuring in the Third Age. And again, I'm not a Tolkien scholar, so forgive me, but this is all before the events of the War of the Ring, which this is kind of, we're talking kind of about in the age of hobbits. The interior art is just amazing black and white artwork, and forgive me, I don't know who the artist is, but it's excellent, very well done. So in the game, what you're going to do is you will have a couple phases that you play. You'll have the adventuring phase where the players go out, and it's very much when you start your game night, you'll go ahead and have the adventuring phase where the players kind of play out the story. They have encounters, and they go ahead and possibly move about the map, explore the hexes, and then the end of each time you'll have a fellowship phase. When the fellowship phase involves healing, spending your experience points, and kind of recovering and stuff. So in the game, you have actions, and your action resolution. This is loosely, and I would say very loosely, based off of the Year Zero type of engine. Now, I'm going to jump ahead really quick. I'm going to open up the box here because there's some really good pre-made characters for examples, and let's go ahead and look into here so that I can show you a character sheet. Now, we could just choose Rory Mac. We could choose Rory Mac Brandybuck, but I think they actually have Bilbo in here. So let's grab Bilbo because, you know, Bilbo is the quintessential Hobbit adventurer. These are all the pre-made characters, so it has the background for them, and then it's got the stats and stuff on the back, which is really well done. Everybody's named Brandybuck, Drogo Baggins, who is obviously from the Shire. There's Bilbo. Okay. So we've got Bilbo here, all right? So the way things work, as far as the way that these skills work, is you'll have strength, heart, and wits. And basically, each one will have his strength. Bilbo's strength is 3. His target number for strength-based skills is going to be 15. And then his endurance is 23. Endurance is very synonymous with, say, hit points, right? His heart is 6, okay? And so his target number of when he's doing skill checks with this is going to be 12. And then his hope, which you can use hope points to add extra dice, things like that, is 16. So let's say that Bilbo wants to use a strength. Let's say he is trapped underneath a fallen horse for some reason, and he's trying to pull himself out from under the horse, and he needs to make a skill check to be able to see if he can do that. So what you would do is you would take one of these skill dice here, which is these 12-sided dice, and then you would take however many 6-sided dice as whatever his stat is. So it's 3 here. So you would go ahead and take the 3 dice, and then you would roll the 2 of these together. If he had any skills, or proficiencies, I should say, which would go along with it, then he would use those dice as well. So, for instance, he has a number of skills here, like, you know, you can see he's filled in his skills, which are very, if you're familiar with the rest of the Free League games, a lot of these will sound vaguely familiar and very general. There's not a big, there's not a huge skill list. This is a streamlined system, very in line with the year 0 type of thing. So anyway, there's he does have athletics, which I would say would probably apply to him trying to lift a horse off of himself, right? So we'd go ahead and we'd add another die, 1 for his athletics score, right? 3 for his strength, and then 1 12-sided that is called the fate die. We always roll that. And the target number is always going to be 15, adjusted, which the GM can adjust for. He can plus or minus whatever difficulties. And so you'd go ahead and you'd roll these dice, and you would need a 15 or more in order to succeed. So right here, we're looking at 4, we're looking at 2, we're looking at 6, where he has an extraordinary success here, which is this little elvish symbol right there, and then 1 and 5. So, I mean, he's got 9, he's got 15, 16, 17, 18. So he would succeed here in pushing this horse off of himself. Now, if at any point you roll a... there we go. This little Eye of Sauron ability on here, it can result in negatives for you. It can result in bad things happen. So if you roll this, then your fate die is at a 0. In some cases, it can actually mean that you fail no matter what. Like, for instance, I think it's if you're despaired or weakened. Then there's also kind of like this Gandalf symbol here, which is a success, and this can trigger extra successes if you rolled that. The other thing too is that this, if you roll these 6s, these can help contribute to extraordinary successes, which are defined by the GM and is meant to interpret those. But look, I don't want to get too into the rules here, but that is just the basics of it. And then the weapons can go ahead and add they can add bonuses or penalties. Now, in the weapons, the way that this works is like, okay, let's look at Sting here, right? So every time he hits with Sting, he would roll, the target number would still be his strength roll, right? Or I think in this system, it allows you to use your, no, it's your strength roll. And it doesn't matter if you're shooting an arrow or if you're firing if you're swinging a sword, you're going to wind up using your strength roll. So he winds up, goes ahead, and the target number would be 15 to try and hit something, and then he would go ahead and use whatever weapon skill he has. So like he's got a skill of 2, so he'd be rolling 5 dice plus his fate dice to get a 15 or better. If he rolls a 20 or better, then he inflicts an injury on the character. Most of the characters, the non-player characters like orcs and things like that, they go ahead and if you get a 1 wound on them, it's going to instantly kill them. Wounded characters actually, once your character gets a wound, it's much harder to recover from than what you normally do is just kind of lose endurance points. But you can lose endurance points by getting tired. You can lose endurance by getting hit in combat. This is mostly superficial wounds unless it gets down to 0, and then your character's broken, and then you would need to have another character medically revive you. Again, okay, I said like 3 times, I'm really not going to get heavy into the rules, and what am I doing? I'm getting heavy into the rules, but I want to give you an idea of how it works. Okay, so that's the basics of how making rolls work in this. It's pretty simple, and it's pretty easy to understand, like most of the Free League games and whatnot. And there goes my son. He just snuck out. Okay, so in the game here, the thing is because the game takes place around the area of Eriador, you're actually limited in the types of characters that you can play. So what you'll do is you'll actually choose kind of a race, and it's kind of a cross between a racial and then also it's cross between a racial and then also a class kind of archetype. So there's the Bardings. The Bardings are men that are, well, and women, but Tolkien used that term to be human. So I'm not trying to be politically incorrect here, but anyway, so these are your human class. These humans are the people that come from Bards, the Lake Town humans. For the most part, they are a hardy people. They're very different than some of the other humans that are portrayed in the game. We'll talk about that. But these characters are the humans that are good at fighting. They're much more prone for adventuring and things like that. They're used to fighting the orcs. This game takes place after Smaug has been killed, I believe. So they are descendants of the town that Bard has become their king. Now, the way when you're taking your character, you actually choose your attributes, or you can roll them randomly, but you roll like a 1d6, and then these would be your actual stats that you would get. But everybody's stats add up to the same here. Looks like you got a total of 14, but it just kind of spaces it out. And again, the strength stat in this also can affect things like what would be dexterity as well. The idea being that it's very, very basic. It's very, covers both, athletic agility and then also athletic might in both. Heart is kind of more of like your spirit for your character, and then wits being kind of like your brain smarts and things like that. Then you would choose like a skill package as well. They start out with these basic skills, and then you actually can spend certain skills and choose combat proficiencies and starting gear. They don't have classes. You really just kind of move your stats around to where, well, I'm more of a sneak type of character than you're kind of more like the thief character, depending on what skills you choose and what proficiencies you choose. If you choose a more brutish character, then you're more of a fighter. But they never lock you in and say, okay, you are a fighter. Your archetype is a fighter, so it doesn't do that. Then you have the Dwarves of Durham's folk. So these are your playable dwarves. These are the dwarves these are the same dwarves that came to Bilbo and that he adventured with in The Hobbit. And again, the exact same thing as the men. As the men of Bardtown, basically you choose your stats. As you can see, dwarf characters have opportunities for a little bit higher strength because they are good fighters and very stout, and then they have a different type of skill set there. So then you can also go to the Elves of Linden. These are the wood elves that we hear about in The Hobbit. And then the hobbits from the Shire are playable. And then the men of Bree are playable as well. The men of Bree are much different than the men of Bardtown, because the men of Bree are much more akin to the hobbits of the Shire in the sense that they are more interested in food and good drink than they are adventuring and excitement. But they also have more of a resistance. So one of the really cool things about this game that I like is they have this, the whole creeping shadow, kind of like the doom that's coming. And as your characters go on and get exposed to certain things in the world, the shadow, they get their shadow starts to kind of, they can get despair and they can get overcome by this. And it really follows along the feel of really like Frodo's plight in Return of the King, or well, in all of the 3 books of Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King, where you kind of get that journey where the further that they go, they can get more and more exposed to the shadow. So because of their simplistic nature and their kind of pragmatic nature, the men of Bree are much more resistant to the shadow, much like the hobbits of the Shire are. Then you have the Rangers of the North, and these Rangers of the North are generally humans. They are the guys that when Aragorn was Strider and he ran around, that's who they're talking about here. And they are playable. Then what you do much in the Free League kind of way, you have callings where is your character going to be a treasure hunter? Are they a scholar? This is more about what their motivation is, but it also kind of helps you in place of an archetype or a class. It helps you kind of figure out, well, okay, this is what the type of character that I want. Get some opportunities for previous experience. Then the starting gear is very basic, in line with a lot of the other Free League games here. Then you form yourselves into a company. Now your company will choose a sponsor. Your sponsor can actually be Bilbo Baggins. It can be Gandalf. It can be Elrond, the Elf Lord. But he's basically he or she is the person that is sponsoring your expedition, much like Gandalf sponsored the dwarves and Bilbo in the original Hobbit. Goes through the skill list here, which is very basic, and the skills are designed to cover a wide variety of actions that you would take. Your combat proficiencies are giving you bonuses on whether or not you use bows or spears, axes, swords, whatever. And the more dice that you have, then the better your player is. Valor and Wisdom are things that will offer. Wisdom is kind of how it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a numerical number for how wise your character is, and Valor is more of like a physical, like his or her courage and whatnot. These things can affect you as far as rewards and skill bonuses and things like that you can get in later on, and you can actually pick up as rewards. You can pick up special magical items and things like that, as opposed to just experience rewards, what you would get. Okay, so like I talked about, adventuring phase is really where the combat takes place. It's where your character goes out and finds the treasure. It's where the majority of the gameplay kind of takes place in the adventuring phase here. There is a section that talks about council. Council is when you sit down and you're having like these mental contests with people. Like if you are sitting down and you are trying to convince Elrond to provide you with ponies for your expedition, then you would it provides a statistical breakdown on how to roll that contest out. My group, I will tell you, are not really fans of the one that sticks out in my mind is a Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game by Green Ronin. They had this entire intrigue section on how to play combat out, where it's almost like a mental combat. We're not big fans of that. We would rather just kind of play out the actual... we like the role-playing, so we would actually just play out the actual council itself and then leave it to the GM's discretion on whether or not whether or not the person, the NPC that the characters are talking to, buys it or goes on board with it. Then there's also this journey thing that the players can go ahead and do. And what they do is they roll according to their certain skills on what their skills are, like their outdoor skills or their recon skills, the hunting skills, whatever, their scout skills. And then you roll and it says how far you can go on the hex, how many hexes you can move on the map without having one of these encounters, which are generally these challenges here. These events are usually something that's fairly negative. And you move however many hexes and have the events before you get to where you want to go. It's an interesting mechanic. Again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the encounter system with Forbidden Lands or Twilight 2000. And then you have your fellowship phase, which is at the end of the adventure. It's kind of where you recover. It is how you go ahead and spend your experience points. If you're going to get any rewards like magic items or anything like that, that's given to you by your patron if you go ahead and earn that. So then there's a whole section on the Loremaster about how to run the actual game itself. It talks about how to administer the shadow here. We've got a great picture of Gollum. And then there's this section on adversaries, and the adversaries are kind of like, this is, for lack of a better term, this is your monsters section. So you have evil men, which basically is just cut purses, thieves, things like that. Orcs, obviously, it's got to be a game if it's a token game, we got to have orcs in here. There's not a lot of difference between it. There's no differentiation between the orcs and the goblins. As far as having their own separate section, they're both included in the orc section here. Then you have trolls, which are going to be obviously a big part of the stone trolls and cave trolls, which we see in both The Hobbit and then also in Fellowship of the Ring. And then undead things like wights and wraiths are in there. And then wolves, because the goblins have to ride on the wolves. And then that's really it. So there's really not a large... If you wanted to buy this book and start making up your own adventures, there's not a lot to go on in this. There's a whole treasure section that talks about getting what kind of rewards and stuff that the characters could get once they are in the fellowship phase. And then there is... So this is interesting because it says, hey, this is a section on the world, but really what this is covering is Eriador, and it covers it in great detail about the history of the area. I actually was reading this and learned quite a bit that I did not. Again, I'm not a token scholar. I'm a guy that read the basic books 20, 30 years ago, and then wound up watching all 6 of the movies. And I actually learned quite a bit in this. I think that it is very true to the source material. And then there's a brief appendix in here which just has a list of possible patrons and how to run the patrons and their personalities, landmarks around the area. Kind of areas of interest in Eriador. But anyway, that's it. That's the basic book, which starts you out with the role-playing game. Now, really quick, I will say that let's talk about the box set here. So, obviously, like before, in the box set, we have some NPCs, and I think we have some examples of patrons. Balin is in there as well, which is kind of cool. And then, sorry, I'm trying to get everything out of the box one-handed here. Cool thing about the box, too, is that the box comes with map on the inside of the box here. And then it also has some tables on the inside of the box. So if you buy this box set, then you don't really need the screen there. There are some player aids for your stances and combat, because it kind of simplifies combat in the box in the starter set here. And these are nice. They're a nice quality and show the different combat stances that you can have as you're learning how to play the game. It does come with its own set of dice that come in the box set here. There are some pretty cool, like a lot of their games. We see a lot of the cards which give us the gear, and it'll have the actual little drawing of the card there, which is very well done. I think it feels very good. And then the damage, the injury, and then load is very important because it can affect your character about whether or not they become fatigued or miserable or things like that. So these are nice cards. The stock is shiny. It's got that kind of good feel to it, like a lot of the cards that you'll see in Free League. Then, okay, I need more arms and a larger table. You will have a beginning book on the rules. This is condensed version. As you can see, it's very light. Oh, this was very interesting too. And I don't know if this is just a misprint, but my book, I haven't seen this in any of the other videos that I've watched, but my book actually printed it backwards. So my rules here actually starts like this. And I just, you know, Free League's customer service is so awesome. If I went and wrote them back and said, hey, this is, you know, this is backwards, then I'm sure that they would replace it for me. But I really am probably not going to use the starter set much because I'll be using the main book. But anyway, this is just a basic summary of the rules that are much more condensed and simplified than what you see in the main book there. And then you actually have the adventures, and this has kind of like a starter adventure, which takes the Conspiracy of the Red Book, which kind of takes the characters around Bree and Hobbiton, and I believe that Bilbo is the patron. And you use the predetermined characters, the pre-made characters, in order to play out this. And then lastly, it comes with a, well, not lastly, but it comes with a source book of the Shire, which gives you a history of the Shire, which is, again, it's condensed from the main book, but it's good. There's good info in there about the Shire. Again, I read some things about it that I didn't even realize before. I cannot believe my daughter just walked in the door and did not come walking over to me and start talking to me, because this is Bland Gaming. And this actually does not come in the box set. We'll come to that. And then you get this map. And the map is a very thick stock, very nice, of Eriador. And as you can see, we can see a lot of the locations, and it's done in the same style as many Lord of the Rings type of publications that we've seen in the past. It's very nice. And then on the other side, it has the same kind of map here. This is actually a map of the Shire, kind of blown up on the Shire. And it's very well done. So, and then let's talk really quick about what came with the screen here. So the screen is nice. The screen, I will say, as everybody knows, that Deeb is a big fan of gaming screens. This one does a really good job of giving a list of things like the conditions, tells you what it means if a character is miserable, what it means if they're weary, what it means if they're wounded, because these are game effects that take place. It talks about there are combat tables about successes and complications, a whole section about skills and injuries, and then over here, things to do in your journey event phase, and then also a whole section on shadow points and how that can affect your character. So this, I would say that this is a very good screen as far as its practicality, and of course it's beautiful. Good size. And it came with the Rivendell source book, which is pretty cool. It's very light, very thin, but it has a little bit of a history about Rivendell. But the big gold nugget in this one here is this allows you to play a character, a high elf from Rivendell. It has a whole stat section in here so that makes it a playable class, which you can use. And I assume that what they will be doing is releasing more books about this, where we have a Rohirrim book, we'll have like a Minas Tirith, a Gondor book, and maybe even a book on the Easterlings. Who knows? There's a lot of options for having this. All right, so let's talk about what I like about the One Ring. The one thing that I like the best about it is that it is oozing with theme, and from everything that I can tell you I'm sure there's a token scholar that could look through here and find discrepancies and find things that are incorrect, but I will tell you that they get the look and the feel of Tolkien's vision dead on. The artwork is amazing. The presentation is amazing. The book itself it's of a heavy stock. If you have the Vaesen book, it has the same kind of texture and feel of the pages of Vaesen, if you have the Vaesen role-playing game. And I like it. I really love the artwork in the game. I love the feel of the game. It does feel like Middle-earth as I'm reading the book. It's definitely synonymous with Middle-earth. If you want to do adventures in the Shire, if you want to do adventures around the Shire, around Bree, this is your book. This is just going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot like The Hobbit. But that is also its greatest strength is its weakness. If you want to play, it feels to me like this is instead of One Ring, this should be One Ring, Chapter 1, Part 1, World Book 1, because to me, I'm a big fan of Rohan and the Rohirrim and that story arc, and there's not anything in the entire book about this. This is very centralized about the area that it plays in. So this really isn't role-playing in the world of Lord of the Rings. This is role-playing in Eriador. And an entire, I assume what they're going to do is there's going to be further releases where you'll have role-playing in Gondor, role-playing in Mordor, role-playing in Rohan. So I assume that stuff is going to come, and that playing those types of characters will come later on. But to me, when I read this book, I was like, well, it kind of feels a little bit incomplete. And when I showed the book to my gaming group, they were a little bit disappointed that it didn't have the broader coverage of Middle-earth, of all of the rest of Middle-earth. That being said, I have to tell you that I like how it releases this little book here, just gives you the Elves of Rivendell as a playable class. I like, if we wanted to do Hobbit-style adventuring in and around the Shire, and in and around Eriador, what it does really well. The rules seem to be a little bit more, they're a little bit less smooth, I should say, than some of the other Year Zero titles, but yet not as complicated as, say, something like 5e or 2d20. Overall, I like the rules, but I had to read a couple of the parts, and there are a lot of conditions that you can get that are word conditions, and I have to keep reminding myself, oh, what does that mean if you get despair? Which one? Oh, what's the combat effect of this and everything? What is favored? But for the most part, if you get things like if you're an old man like me, and most of my hard thinking has been brain cells have been killed by fine bourbon, then getting the actual screen can certainly help. It has all the information that you need on there. So in summary, I really do recommend the One Ring. I really do like it. I like what they've done with it. I also like that they don't pin you down in a class. But then the other thing too is like, and I'm sorry, my bourbon damaged brain is going on here. But like, there's not a magic section in this. There's no thing about spell using type characters. Now you can pick up magical items, which kind of give you instant successes or maximum successes, depending on what kind of magical item it is. But there's not anything in here if you wanted to play a wizard type character, which actually is kind of synonymous with Tolkien's vision. There weren't wizards running all over the place. The wizards were very special. They were very, but you know, you had certain characters were able to use magic, like Elrond and like Gandalf, and but there, it was very rare. It wasn't like some of the other, like the well, like Harry Potter, where magic is pretty much like electricity in their society. So anyway, it's pretty rare in this setting here. But again, the best things about the game, in summary, the presentation, the what it does extremely well. But the only disadvantage, and the presentation, the artwork is just amazing. But the only opportunity for improvement I see here is that this game does not feel like all of Middle-earth. It's just giving you a piece of Middle-earth, but what it's doing, it's giving you that piece, and it's giving it to you really, really well. If you're not interested in adventuring in the area of Eriador, what I would recommend is maybe waiting until more source material and things come out. But overall, I think it's a good game. I think it's something that I would actually put on my recommend list. But again, I was really anxious to see the Riders of Rohan in this game, and to have that after you get over that initial disappointment, after you've thumbed through the book and everything. And if I would have known what I was getting with this, then I probably would have, the shock for me wouldn't have been as severe. Because once I got over the initial shock that, okay, deal with it, Deeb, you're not going to be able to play the Rohirrim, then I started reading it. Then I started really appreciating it for what it was. And I saw that, man, it really does what it sets out to do really well. So anyway, if you have had a chance to back the Kickstarter, if you've picked up your copy, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, or if you are a Tolkien scholar and you have a more informed opinion on how well this actually follows Tolkien's writings, leave me a like, leave me a comment, tell me what you think. But anyway, on this rainy Saturday afternoon, this is Deeb signing off. Thanks for tuning in. And I would give The One Ring as is a B+. Just because it feels like we're only getting a little part of Middle-earth. But I think that once there is definitely opportunity for growth here, and it's off to a good start. Thanks for watching. Bland Gaming again, my boring YouTube channel, and everybody take care, and I will see you at the table.